Shiur Simcha? He's wondering where the videos are. He watches the videos, they stop coming on.
Yeah.
I told him they're coming back. Alright.
No, it's kind of like rain yesterday because he showed me memories.
Quick review. Well, Bear's lighting the candles. 30-second review?
No, gone already. Rolling.
Oh, we're already rolling,
I'm
man.
in it.
This is it. So, we're discussing that what's the chiddush of the Chanukah miracle? Mistama, we already had a miracle of this sort in the time of Sarah and Rivka, because when Yitzchak brought Rivka back to his tent, the Ola Sarah Imo, suddenly it was Sarah his mother, because the candles were burning Mileil Shabbos to Leil Shabbos. The candles were burning for a full 7 days. So it sounds very much like the Chanukah menorah. There was an extended period of oil. What's the chiddush? You have to say there's some kind of a chiddush, because here we're going to make a whole holiday out of it. So it's got to be some kind of a new miracle. But if we're going to say that the new miracle was just that was 7 days, this is 8 days, it's kind of a weak chiddush. Just a little bit, one more day. So we said we have to understand that there's two ways of looking at the miracle, and the Beis Yosef brings 2 dayas. What exactly happened in the miracle of Chanukah? One is, as we said, that there was a miraculous quality of the oil, just like we find in by Sarah and Rivka. That the oil lasted, even though there was only one jug of oil, it didn't burn down the way normal oil does, and it lasted that one jug lasted 8 days. It was a supernatural quality of oil.
Instead of 1 day?
Instead of lasting for 1 day, it should have burned down the same amount of oil in 1 day. It took 8 days. So every day, 1/8 of the oil went away. Another way of looking at the miracle is that there was a miraculous quantity of oil, that the jug kept on refilling itself. Once they would fill up the whole thing day one, they would look in the jug, and it was full up day 2 as well.
In Tanakh, what's his
Yeah, we're going to get to it. Elisha.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, you could say that every morning they came back in, and the Neros themselves were just refilled with oil. The jug was empty, but either way, the oil doubled, tripled, quadrupled. So if we want to look at it the first way, huh? Yeah, what have you? Can you say that 10 times fast? If you want to say it's the first way, then we wind up saying that, as we said before, there's not really a chiddush in the mitzvah, because Sarah and Rivka already had such a thing. He says, but the second way seems like a chiddush. However, it's really not a chiddush either. Why? Because in the days of Elisha, there was the same exact thing took place. Right? Because the whole story we spoke about yesterday, that the jars kept filling up.
Is that
Eliyahu's student. There was a story with a widow and her son, and the creditor came to take all their money. They didn't have anything. So he had them pour 1 jar of oil miraculously into infinite number of kalim over there, as many kalim as they could find, and it kept on filling. So that's exactly the idea, that the quantity of the oil multiplied. So again, we don't really have a chiddush so much. The quality, no, it was the same oil, but the quantity, there was more oil than what seemed like in 1 jar. So either way you look at it, there's no real chiddush in the Chanukah miracle. The Rabbi is trying to say that there must be.
Couldn't you just say that since it's the time period now, after the time of Hanukkah, where they didn't have the Nisim? It was after the Nevi'im, after the whole thing. Now you don't have Nisim. Nothing's going on. It's really in Bizman Hester, yeah? And Bekolzot.
Listen, they had a miraculous war. In other words,
miraculous war is Melubash B'Teva. A war is a war.
Bichlal is not Melubash B'Teva so much. That was a crazy, miraculous war. It doesn't make any sense.
That's nothing new.
Exactly. I'm saying that the miracles never ended. I mean, this was already... Look, this is already before the Tanoim. It's before Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It's before Pinchas ben Yair splitting rivers. There's plenty of miracles were going on for the Jewish people. There has to be a chiddush in every miracle.
Okay.
Adam Yaakov, where are you going? I'm talking to you.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm with you.
All right, so then the Rebbe says, I want to go on, but the Rebbe says one further issue, and this is kind of a major issue, which is that even if you want to take either side of the coin on these two miracles, there's a problem with both of them. That they're great miracles and all, but there's no way either of those two miracles occurred in the Menorah, in the Chanukah story. Why? First of all, if you want to say that the oil was miraculously refilled, who remembers if we say that the oil was that the miracle was with the quantity, the amount? Why is that a problem to say that took place in the Menorah? Who remembers from yesterday?
It's too much.
No.
Because it has to be Shemen Zayis?
Yeah, it has to be Shemen Zayis. The pasuk says Shemen Zayis, olive oil, and miracle oil is not olive oil. So it's very, very hard to say. If you want to say that, what does it really mean, Shemen Zayis in the Torah? It's not really Shemen Zayis. It's a Shemen that looks like Shemen Zayis. That's already dochek. So he says that's probably not what happened because it's puzzle to light, not real olive oil in menorah. You want to have a question?
If we're already talking about something miraculous, why couldn't it just easily be, couldn't it just easily be olive oil?
I think that's the whole kind of point of what the pasuk is saying, is that you don't want miraculous when it comes to mitzvahs. When it comes to mitzvahs, you have to do the mitzvah properly according to teva, right? And no, I mean, when you say God can make olive oil that doesn't come from an olive, it's simply not the definition of olive oil. Hashem can make olive oil that comes from an olive. You know how? You take an olive and you squeeze it. That's also a miracle, right? But the point is that you can't have your cake and eat it too. In other words, if it's olive oil, it comes from an olive. If it's just something that has all the properties of olive oil but didn't come from an olive, it's not called shemen zayis. It says oil from an olive.
How do we know it didn't come from an olive and it just wasn't teleported?
So you're saying teleported from an olive?
Well, it's already a miracle.
Okay, well they would have seen it, I guess, teleported, no?
Nah.
That would have been one of the miracles because they had to travel 8 days for the olive oil.
So then that really should be the miracle of Chanukah, that Hashem squeezed the olives from Gush Chalav and had it magically teleported and nobody saw it. I guess it's such a miracle. I feel balanes lo makir benisa. Okay, so we can't say that that's the miracle because it's beyond our capacity to even understand such a thing.
So it's puzzle then, according to you? It's not like
So that's puzzle. You're not allowed to use not olive oil in the menorah. So that siba for the miracle is not such a good one because it requires being puzzle oil. Second problem is if you want to say that the miracle went the other day of the Beis Yosef, that it was supernatural quality of oil, it burned only an eighth every day, you have two problems. One, I don't know which one's worse than the other one. Good move. Stay in.
I'm staying.
Obi-Wan. Anyway, so what's the problems with the supernatural quality of the oil? Who remembers? One, it has to be full. You cannot have midos that are chaser in the Beis Hamikdash. So you can't fill it like kiddush. You have to fill your cup to the top. You know, kol shekain in the Beis Hamikdash, all the mitzvahs have to be. So if it burned down an eighth the first day, second day they're already not doing the mitzvah properly because they didn't have full menorahs. Second issue with that, and the Rebbe considers this one the ikar problem, is that you have to have the right midah inside of every kli. So, for example, except the eighth day would have been the only day that they actually had the appropriate amount of oil in the cup, because an eighth of the jar of oil is what burns mi'erev ad boker. You have to have enough oil to burn from evening to morning. So if this is supernatural oil which burns 8 times as powerful as normal, then only if you have an eighth of the amount of a normal cup, which is anyway possible because it's not shlemus. But even so, if you have an eighth of a amount in there, that's the proper amount that you need to put in to burn from Erev Ad Boker, because it's 8 times as strong.
You're putting more.
So
you have extra.
You're not allowed to have extra. So day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 were puzzle, and day 8 would have been the only kosher amount. So that you get burned on both ends. Excuse the pun. So we wind up with a situation where we don't have any good days anymore for what the miracle was on Chanukah. Okay, now we'll continue.
Which page?
Page Kuf Chaf Ches. Ber Shlishi. Here's the Rebbe's explanation. The third idea. Kilion ve'i kilion b'bas achas. He was burned and not burned at the same time. Dalid. Yesh lo meber shlishi ba'ofen hanes tepach Hashem. So this is the Rebbe's chiddush.
Meaning the full.
Here we're going to see. This is the whole answer. By the way, this is not a new thing. How long has Chanukah and the discussion of Chanukah been around? Since the Maccabees, a couple thousand years. This is the first time anyone ever found this problem and also answered it. Because we're living Dura Shvi is a special time, man. The Rebbe is mamish bringing finally some clarity onto Chanukah after 2,000 years. What it is, Bichlal. It's amazing. Anyway, so he says there's a third way of looking at the Pach Shemen. The miracle that was there, that we don't have to get involved in all of the difficulties that we had. There was two primary categories of difficulties. There's no chiddush, and it's not halachically sound. So he says we can get out of all those difficulties. And with it, we can also understand why there was a chiddush in Chanukah regarding miraculous candlelight. Shalom atzinu dugmasa. We don't find a miracle in candle lighting or in oil of this nature. Huskale, we mentioned earlier, Sif Beis Haber Hamuv Beis Yosef. What the Beis Yosef brought ba'ofen nes hapach hashemen when he mentioned how the miracle of the shemen worked. L'dei achas, according to one opinion, shanes hizbata bazeh, the nes expressed itself in this. Shenasnu kol hashemen beneros. One of the things we said, this was when we were dealing with the idea that it was a miraculous amount of oil that kept multiplying. He mentioned over there the fact on the ground, the Metzias, was that they put in oil in the candles, and in the morning they found that they were still full with oil. So we had explained that to mean what? That it burned down and more was replenished the next day, supernatural amount.
Why did it fill up to an eighth?
First of all, we already said there's problems with that. If it filled up to an eighth miraculously each day,
It filled only an amount to the eighth.
why wouldn't they fill it to an eighth each day?
No, it miraculously filled up, but it didn't fill up to the right quantity. I don't understand why.
No, if miraculously filled, you're confusing two things. According to the idea that it went down only an eighth, they didn't fill it up every day. They only filled it up once the first day, and it just slowly went down. So there's no reason for Hashem to fill it back up miraculously with an eighth. That's like the contrary to if he's going to fill it up, or he's going to fill it up whole and make it burn down every day. Think about it for a second.
No, that Hashem made the miracle according to the halacha.
What? Who's talking?
That it should be at an eighth.
Yeah, but it's not real oil.
I'm saying, but if you fill it up to, Hashem doesn't have to refill it to an eighth. Why? Because the idea is that it went down an eighth. Is that when they found the original jar, Hashem made a miracle with the jar, that the oil in the jar was supernatural quality, and when they poured it in, it only burned down an eighth. If Hashem was going to make a miracle of replenishing oil, which already has its problems because it's not Shemen Zayis,
Right.
He's not going to replenish and just a supernatural quality and just put an eighth in there, because that's silly on all ends. It's chaser. It's lacking the fullness. Right? You can't. He's not going to miraculously. And anyway, he doesn't have to do it. Right? If he's going to already fill it up miraculously and make a miracle, he'll fill it up to the top. What's the problem? So the question is,
filling up to the top is not the eighth.
You don't need an eighth. In other words, it would burn down every day, and he would fill it up again every day to the top. The only reason you need an eighth is he's not increasing the amount of oil. He's increasing the quality of oil.
Right, okay.
You get that?
I think.
Yeah, we dealt with it at length yesterday, but you have to come around, because this is not the way you go back there, you guys. That row is like, I don't want to say what row that is. That's not a living row. Yeah, what's your question, Yoel?
Is it possible that all of the candles burn at different rates? Like you start off, with one candle with so much oil, let's say 40, okay, and then it goes down to 30.
Uh-huh.
The second candle has oil from 30, but it burns slower.
How does that help you though? Every day you need to burn all seven candles.
Yeah, they all burn up at the eventually at the same time. It's just like they burn.
But how does that help you?
What do you mean how does that help?
What is it? You could say, I guess, that the oil was blue and yellow and green, but what is it? How does it help you with the mitzvah and so forth?
No, because the oil doesn't burn out for all 8 days.
So if the oil doesn't burn out, but it burned down, you have the problem that it wasn't whole the second day.
No, but I'm saying like each day, like the amount of oil is level. It's level. It's just like it's burning like I don't know. It's like I don't know.
How can the oil burn and not burn out?
That's what you're saying.
It's so crazy.
That's heading over here.
Well, I don't understand what he's saying. I'm not laughing at you. Trust me.
It's so
I don't
crazy.
understand what you're saying.
Burning down
Shh.
something goes
Imagine
same
like
shot.
8
That's his answer.
types of oil.
Okay.
Right? It's all the same oil. It's like
Okay.
it's like different like oil like goes like different speeds. Like but wherever it ends up is like never at the same level. So if it's like 60 and tomorrow will be 50.
But then tomorrow it's not whole. It's not full the next day.
So
So
it has to be full.
every day has to start with full. You can't get out of the problems. I don't see any solution to this. The Rebbe is going to bring up the only solution. I'm serious. I'm not. I don't. There was name to toot his horn, but what you're saying is not. That's why I said. Well, how does that help? It's the same problem you get into. So going on, we have in the Beis Yosef a deya, according to one of our deyas, that every morning they found that the candles were full. So we get out. Okay, so that's good. At least in the morning they lit whole neros. But okay, so how does it work? Yesh lomar. We could say shaperush bezehu, that the real explanation behind the matter, lo shashemen ber v'achar kach hismalu aneros mechadash b'derech neis. Not like we thought that why do they come back and find it full in the morning? Because the overnight it burned all the way down, and the next morning it replenished miraculously. That's not the reason why they found it full in the morning. But it was because the shemen was burning all night, and the miracle was that not a drop of it was lost while it was busy burning.
Sounds like the snare.
Sounds like the snare, baby. Only a keen mind would mention the snare. We had another snare mentioner before.
It's still Shem and Zayas.
Shem and Zayas all the way. And there's nothing chaser. And it's just all around Rebbe. But Divrei Chazal, once you get the Rebbe's answers, oftentimes you're like, of course. But no one thought about this for 2,000 years, mind you. The closest we got was Yol with different percentages. It's not so pashit. You don't really realize there's an issue here, for all these years. It's okay, you have one opinion or you have the other opinion. But first of all, neither of them makes sense.
Oh, it didn't burn down?
The miracle was that the oil was burning and not burning at the same time. It was a light, and yet at the same time it wasn't going down like the sneh.
But Messias, they have to put it out every day and light it again?
That's not such a strange thing, because if you read, you read the Gemara, Ma'ay Chanukah, they anyway did that with there was a Ner Maravi, they would come find it lit, they would put it out and light it again every day. That's normal. There's anyway a miracle connected with the concept. Anyway, no one mentions that there was a nace of this sort of the sort of Sarah and Rivka every single day in the Menorah, not once in a lifetime. Right?
No, but they found the pure junk.
No, I'm saying in every day, forgetting about Chanukah,
right.
They would have this miracle called the Ner Maravi. They would come in the next morning, and they would light it first, and it would be lit until last, because it was like Sarah and Rivka. Okay, just saying that's obviously not a chiddush of the menorah. We have to come up with some kind of a new miracle. Otherwise, that's like Meister Shel Kol Yom. What's that?
What's the difference between that one and that one?
Which one and which one?
By Sarah and
Nothing. That's what I'm saying.
then it's not an answer.
No, I'm saying that wasn't Chanukah. That was every day in the menorah. In the menorah.
Same thing.
No, I'm trying to say he could have just as easily said
It's the same thing.
that instead of saying that the Sarah and Rivka is not a chiddush, he could have said that the daily lighting of the menorah is not a chiddush. We had, if he wants to say that the oil went slowly burned at a miraculous rate, it was a special quality of oil. He doesn't have to go to Sarah and Rivka. He can go to the menorah of every day. That's all I'm saying. Let's go on. We're not solving anything. We're just chatting over here. More questions? Come on. Let's go forward here. We got time is money, Ariel. What's
We didn't
that?
even know it was a riddle.
Huh?
The nature of the Ner Maravi, but I want to do over.
The candle, it burns slower.
Okay.
Okay. So anyway, going on. What was the miracle? It burned, and together with this, nothing was lacking from the oil. As the Chazal say, Gabi Eish Shel Maila, she sorefes ve'inu ocheles. Chazal say regarding something called the Eish Shel Maila, the higher fire. Shmos Rabbah, Benogei L'Sneh. If you look in the footnote 22, he says that the fire of heaven, it burns, but it doesn't consume. L'hayir, to explain, Gam im timtza lomar, shefshar ladlik as a menorah b'shemen shel neis. Even if you wanted to say that you could light the menorah with a miraculous oil and knock out the concept of shemen zayas, we gave that as a possible dochek answer. Ki yesh bo tchunos shel shemen zayis kanal, because at least it's like you guys wanted to say, it has all the properties of shemen zayis. Hashem can make shemen zayis from scratch if he wants to without an olive. Even if you want to say that, hare muvan sha'eish va'or shel menorah chayv shia ma'ashemen lemar. Right? We still have to say that the fire and the light of the menorah has to be from the shemen. In other words, you have to make the fire from the shemen. You cannot have a fire burning miraculously without being fire from the oil, because it's called shemen lemar. It's called shemen to bring light. In the Torah, it's very specific that the fire has to be fire from the oil. As opposed to, Hashem could do what he wants to. He could put a jar of oil, bring a flame, just take this one, and just stick it there. And it's not really coming from the oil. It's just that could be the miracle. But that's totally disqualified, because shemen lemar. It has to be oil that's burning. So the fire has to be produced from the oil. So even if you want to say that it doesn't have to be real olive oil, it still has to be burning oil, because the flame must come from the oil, not a miraculous flame sitting there not consuming anything. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but something doesn't fit.
So it was consuming energy.
Yes, the laws of nature are being broken. That's what's called a miracle. Nimsa shebeneis ha'davar befucho, comes out that in this miracle there was something and its opposite happening at the same time. Eish, TV, a normal fire, v'or hanero sheba mishemen v'kiyotzi b'zeh, or light of the candles that comes from oil or the like. Chayev lios bo kilayon hashemen. It's a nat. You just put your finger right on the point. It's naturally, the rules are you have to have a decrease and a burn up in the oil. It has to eat the oil. Fire cannot exist unless it's consuming something. Right? Combustion only exists when there is a consuming entity that is enabling its existence to be there. It must consume something.
So again, it doesn't qualify.
L'idach gisa, on the other hand, lo nechsham Hashem and klum. We're saying here that while the fire was burning, and the klal of fire burning means it's consuming something. That's the natural way the fire works. At the same time, no oil went away from the jar. That's called kilayon ve'ikilayon b'bas echas. So that what that's called is something and its exact opposite. There must be a consuming of the oil, and simultaneously there's no consuming of the oil. It's something and its opposite, two opposite things happening simultaneously. And both of them we're required to say are happening. It's like light and tzimtzum, whatever you want to call it. It's like the burning bush, mamash. It was a fire was burning, and there was nothing being consumed from the bush. It's impossible. It's two things happening simultaneously. If the fire is burning, it means something's being consumed. And if the oil is staying totally full, if the bush is not being burnt, it means that simultaneously nothing's being consumed. This is the miracle, says the Rebbe. And this level of miracle is for sure a chiddush, because this is basically the highest level of godliness that exists. It's basically the essence of God. Nimna ha-nimnoyos is a classic term for something which means that anything that you could negate from Hashem is negated. There's no holds barred, right? To be nimna to nimnoyos means that you're holding something back, and here we're saying they were holding back any holdings back. What's that?
What's the word?
Nimna ha-nimnoyos.
Monea,
Monea, to hold back. Al derech hanei shel makom arum einu min amida. The classic place we find this is in the Heichel, in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, when we say the place of the Aron did not take up space. Shayabo beis hafachim bas achas. That you had in that miracle also two opposite things happening simultaneously. One, makom Aron haisamida. One was that the actual shape of the Aron HaKodesh, which held the Ten Commandments, it had measure. right? Which explained Mefurish B'Torah what the measurement was. The Torah tells us its measurement. It was Amasayim v'Chetzi Arko, etc. It was 2.5. It was 2.5 amos wide and 1.5 amma long, etc. So in other words, it had exact measurements, and you had to make sure that the Aron was a certain measure. And together with that, as we discussed before, it didn't take up any place. Means what? When it was sitting here, a box, when they measured from the wall to this wall, there was 10 amos in the room. When they measured from here to the edge of this box, they found 5 amos. When they measured from here to the end of this, they found 5 amos, which means that this did not take up any place. And yet, when they measured this, it was 2.5 amos. So it was a pashut thing that it was there and not there simultaneously. So he's saying this is Nimna Hanunas. This is the Kodesh HaKadoshim. This is the central essence of Hashem's existence in the world, in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Where else do you think he resides? And this is what took place, that same level, and the miracle of Chanukah, says the Rebbe. So the Rebbe is like bumping up the miracle of Chanukah to the premier type of miracle that could possibly happen. It's not just a change of nature, because a change of nature is all miracles, no big deal. We know about that. But to have a change of nature and nature simultaneously, that's the Kodesh HaKadoshim. That's as good as it gets. Someone had a question? Yeah.
Is that how we Jews define the miracle? Or it's like infinite and finite, not just something that's completely improbable but still happened, and it's like a miracle, obviously, but it didn't bend nature.
That's no, it's impossible. Physically impossible.
Right, like I'm saying, do we define a miracle as something that's like this, that's like infinite and finite?
There's different kinds of miracles. That's what he's trying to say. The miracle, let's say, the first way we were explaining it was not infinite and finite. It was just infinite. There was no finite happening when you have miraculous oil being reproduced from nowhere. You don't see the natural aspect of that. That's just a miracle, breaking the laws of nature. Hashem can do that, right? He can break the laws of nature. Hashem can also have nature. Don't forget, nature itself is a type of a miracle. It's just enclosed in rules, right? But to have these two forces working simultaneously at every second, right? That you have the oil is burning, and that's a natural event, because naturally speaking, the flame must be made from the combustion of the oil, right? And therefore, in order for a flame to be made, it must consume. And simultaneously, while it's being consumed, it's not being consumed. That's a special type of miracle, where the miracle is happening in the same exact place where nature is taking place, and they don't snuff each other out. It's like water and fire existing simultaneously as one. That's a very high level of miracle.
It seems like that essence is almost like the essence of what we are. There's something that we're composed of.
Like a yid is basically Havaya, and he has soul and his body taking place in the same place. Yeah. Rebbe goes on. Os hey v'omek yoser. Let's go deeper. V'nei shel makom ha'aron einu min hamida. Ein adgasha rak b'zeh sha'aron klal bo es shnei afachim. When it comes to the miracle in the Beis Hamikdash, the Aron didn't take up any place. The only emphasis is that the Aron contained inside of it two opposites, Mida and Eino Mina Mida. It had measure, and it also didn't take up any space at the same time. Eliyasar al came, but there's more than that. Ha'eino Mina Mida, the idea that it didn't take up any place, Ba'dav k'metzadzeh v'al yedei zeh sh'aisa la'aron Mida, Mesuyemes. That the reason, this is very important, the reason that the Aron didn't take up any place is because it actually had an absolute fixed measure in its own right. If they hadn't made the Aron in the exact right proportions that the Torah prescribes, then it wouldn't have the kedusha of the Aron, and b'meila it would not have had the miracle in it of it doesn't take up place. In other words, if they would have made it wrong, made it 3 amos instead of 2.5, so then all the kedusha would go away and it would just be stam a box in the room. So the idea is that the reason that it had this quality of eino mina mida, it didn't take up place, is because it did have its finite. That's infinite, right? The fact that it doesn't take up place is infinite. It's an infinite quality of supernatural. But the supernatural is only able to be there and hold its ground because the natural, so to speak, the prescribed rules were in place. Let's say nature means prescribed rules, right? So the fact is that the Aron was behaving according to its rules is what was, so to speak, the kli enabling the supernatural quality to be in there. And that's very much what we're like. In other words, this is when a yid does a mitzvah and his tefillin is a centimeter off, so there's no kedusha because he's not doing the mitzvah, so he's just a guy with a box on his head, basically. You don't want to be that guy. But if you all of a sudden you put it in the right place because you've conformed, so to speak, to these finite rules which seem totally peculiar and ridiculous to us. Why, if my box is left or right, I'm just a guy with a box on my head, and if it's center, I'm like this mystical creature? That does not make any sense. It's just rules. It's like nature. Does it make sense, really, the rules of nature? That a person, they don't make sense. You know, they make sense once they're there. Then they obey their own rules. So it's a sort of like an implicit, agreement upon the rules of nature to just behave themselves like they do. But why should the sun go this direction and not that direction? Because, right? But once you follow the rules, so in the following the rules, you put the kedusha in, then that mitzvah becomes a kli for the supernatural. You can have the finite holding the supernatural specifically because it's keeping down its finite boundaries. If it goes out of its finite, you lose the infinite. And this is a deep, 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 deep sod in all of Yiddishkeit, basically. Because that's why we find, the Jewish star is one triangle going up and one triangle going down. And it's basically saying that there's what you have here is two mamish opposites simultaneously taking place. That there's finite and infinite. We are the same people who brought the concept of the one God to the world, right? And we defied everybody. Everyone was saying, no, this is God and this is God and this is God. So no, God is everywhere equally. There's only one God, and He's everywhere equally. And then we're the ones with all these peculiar rules. Oh yeah, but this one God who's everywhere equally, He only wants to be served in this particular place, and in this mountain, and in this room, and with these people, and with this clothes on, and etc., etc. Why all these particulars if God is everywhere is all the same? Because they come together, the infinite resides only in the place of the finite. There's a lot more we could say about this. This is basically, there's a reason why this was the secret message in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Because that's the centerpiece of the whole religion, basically, that it has these two opposites, nature and supernatural, simultaneously happening. Because that's what it's all about. Some want to say God is beyond nature. Some want to worship nature. And the Jewish people have the Jewish star. It's up and down at the same time. It's only if you have nature and supernatural simultaneously. And that boggles the mind of everybody. Because either pick a side here, We're happy to go with you, but you can't be both at the same time. So this is the Yiddishkeit. Yeah? Which it's a slogan, but what? How could it be? It doesn't make any sense. Even in Al-Pi Chassidus doesn't make sense. Alright, so, going on. Daniel.
Yeah, 1 second. Just changing my shoes. Is there
Sure. Sure, you gotta have good shoes.
they're not
Al derech zeh. The shaila is, if you needed good shoes, you needed them to begin with. Okay, anyway, if you don't need good shoes, you can wait till the end. Al derech zeh v'neis Chanukah. The same is true when it comes to Chanukah. Neis ba davka mitzad zeh v'al yedei zeh. The miracle is specifically through this concept. Shad likos haneres b'mikdash kedin. That they lit the candles in the mikdash according to the law. Why is the Rebbe pushing this answer in? Because he doesn't like the fact that the other answers require like a little bit of a leniency in the strict letter of the law, one way or the other. Either you're going to have chaser midos, you're not going to have a full thing, or it's not going to be shemen zayis, and you could get away with all those. You could explain yourself. The rabbis are smart people. They could give yourself a heter why anything could go. But the Rebbe says, we're not looking for heterim. We need exactness. If they made the ark 2.7 amos instead of 2.5, the kedusha wouldn't be there. So we need to have the mitzvah of the Chanukah menorah lit exactly according to the law. We don't want to play games with the shemen zayis. We don't want to play games with the filling of the oil. So he wants to say there was a perfect fulfillment of the mitzvah. Kedin. Mekevan she'or menorah chayav liyos mishemen. Since the light of the menorah has to be burned from oil, has to be burning from oil. Shemen laha'ir, shemen lama'or. It has to be candles, the oils that's illuminating. V'techunas hashemen, he should nichles be'esh. And the property of oil is that it gets consumed when fire starts to burn it. So this miracle the Beis Yosef brings down, they found that the oil, that the candles were full, that there was no oil lacking. Nifal dafka techunes hakilayon shel hashemen. Not nifal. No, upal dafka de techunes hakilayon shel hashemen. Right, and it was affected specifically by oil burning. In other words, the fact they were whole was not to the exclusion of the fact that the oil was burning. He doesn't want to take away the natural process of the mitzvah, which means oil burns when it's lit. So that must have been taking place. At the same time, it wasn't, because that's what the whole point is. There's two opposite things happening. Okay, so he says the difference between the ofen anes the gimel habiurim. How there's like difference between the way of the miracle according to these three explanations. Let's see. Osvav. Hashayich shel nes bofen azel lechanukah dafka. What's the connection of the miracle specifically to Chanukah? Yuvim behektim achiluk shebein gimel beorim bofen anes. We can understand first by prefacing the difference between these three explanations of how the miracle happened. Its connection to Chanukah depends on how we break it down. One, as we said, here's just a quick review. Hosafa b'kamus Hashem. And one, the first day there was a more amount of oil. Two, Hosafa b'eichos Hashem. There was a better quality of oil. It was stronger, powered oil. And three, shnei afachim. The third way we look at it is there was two opposites happening simultaneously: consumption and not consumption at the same time. According to the first explanation, hanes nira rak l'regeh echad. According to the first explanation, the miracle only happened. It only appeared to happen for 1 second. Also, that moment when all of a sudden there was no oil, and boom, there was oil, miraculous. Right? Either the, as we said, there was two ways of looking at it. Either the jar refilled, or the candles in the jar refilled. But either way, every day there was one moment of miracle. But afterwards, the oil burned naturally. In other words, the nace happened, and then the nature happened, but not at the same time. Right? Yeah, well, it was a nace, but not nace and miracle. That's also true. Excuse me, we said that. Even though the miracle was connected with the lighting, because if it wasn't for the miraculous oil, there would be nothing to light in the mikdash. So obviously the miracle was connected with the fire lighting. So it comes out that the essential burning of the candles, through this oil, kasher l'neis, is connected to a miracle. And he's trying to say that you might say that the actual flames and the burning of the menorah, there's a hava meaning to think that there's really no miracle in it, because at the end of the day they were just burning natural oil, right? He's saying, but no, because there would have been no oil to burn without the nace that took place to fill up the oil, then you have to say the miracle was in fact the burning of the menorah. The actual lighting of the menorah was connected to a miracle, because every second they're only burning because they're based on a miracle. Nevertheless, when they're burning, the miracle part is sort of like hidden under the table. You have to remember there was a miracle at one point, and so it's not revealed as the Chanukah is burned, is on fire there, that the miracle is taking place at this moment. So it's not there's not a revealed miracle when the menorah is burning. And what's the proof? Someone who walked in, he missed the war, he had a plane to catch in Brazil, he came back late from the whole thing, he's like, oh good. He walks up, puts on his clothes as a Kohen, and he doesn't know the whole miracle happened. He's going to just go light it. He's not going to see any miracle taking place. He's not going to know that there was a miracle underlying this, because it's not in any way revealed or visible at the time of lighting the menorah. It looks like a natural event. That's what he says. The proof is someone who doesn't know about the source of the oil, that it's miraculous, he's not going to know that the miracle happened here at all. Second, okay, so that's like dealing with how we understand the first manner of the miracle. Levi, you understanding this? Okay. The second explanation is, you have questions or anything? It's just at this point, you just
the last point.
Wait, but this shows up
okay. The last point is as follows.
later.
The point before this guy walks in and doesn't see the miracle.
Right. In other words, the point is that we're just trying to say that if you say the miracle was that there was a miraculous amount in the kamos, in the quantity of oil, it's the first day we looked into, right? So how does it affect the connection with the lighting of the menorah and the miracle? They're clearly not happening at the same exact time. It's one and then the other. The miracle was that, boom, all of a sudden the oil is replenished, and the miracle's over. Now it's just a matter of lighting the menorah like you would on a regular day. So the miracle is not showing itself at the time of the lighting. It's still connected. It's still shaykh theoretically to say that we're gonna make a holiday for the miraculous lighting, because the lighting of the menorah is connected with a miracle. You wouldn't be able to light it unless there was oil there. So there was a miracle underlying the lighting, but it's sort of like forgotten about, because when you're actually lighting, there's no miracle happening anymore. And the proof is, if someone walks in and didn't know that this oil was replenished miraculously, he would think it's just a regular day of the mikdash. That's the point.
On the other hand, if you look, I'm sorry to drive you crazy.
Yeah.
On the other hand, when you're lighting the menorah,
Don't worry.
right?
I don't know if someone digs a pit that's already 10, another one digs another 11. I think you're putter.
Okay. If you light, if the guy's lighting the thing, and it goes according to what the Rabbi said, it's kilion be'enu, kilion b'yachad.
Yeah.
He's not going to see anything either.
Not true. Not true. If he's Moshe,
It takes a while before.
how long? Moshe came back and had a second look, right? That was the whole thing. It said Moshe looked twice at the sneh.
Oh, so you come back an hour later?
Not an hour later. Why an hour?
5 minutes later.
5 minutes.
Nah,
Yeah, sure.
you notice it.
Okay, so it takes a few minutes, but if you take a look, in other words, you can see that there's a constant state of something strange is happening here, right? This was the. Okay, maybe you have to look closely. No one's saying it's glaring. But that's kind of the beauty of it. It's nature and not nature at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's the greatest thing. This is how Hashem first introduced himself to the great prophet. You have to take a second look, which also teaches you something, about life. You have to take a second look. You can see everything's mamish like that. Anyway, let's try to do one more little piece here. According to the second explanation, which is Kevan shekamus Hashem in Aktana be'er lemeshech zman harbe, since the same amount of oil burned for much longer, me'afshari al pitev, which is impossible according to nature. This is going according to the fact that the quality of the oil was stronger. Kan amnam nira hanes. He says here you can see the miracle. Gam b'shas beros haneros, even when the neros are burning, right? You can see a miracle is taking place, because you have to look pretty closely. But you say, wait a second, this should be taking 4 hours and it took 1. Ach mashenira b'shas be'iros Hashem. But what you see at the moment when the candles are burning, zerak achidish shel hanes. Aval hanes gufa kvar nifal b'rega shakadosh baruch hu shina v'chizek es echos Hashem. You don't see right now a miracle happening. You're seeing the result of a miracle, similar. Because what you're seeing, Hashem is not right now presently changing the quality of the oil. He changed it on day 1. He changed it before they even poured it in. He made this supernaturally strong oil. So what you're seeing right now is actually a natural event. It's just a natural event taking place with something which the composition of it has changed to something stronger oil. You see what he's saying? So you're still not seeing a miracle taking place right this second. You're seeing something supernatural happening, but you're seeing that this oil was changed to a new nature, but that change took place back on day 1. So while you're watching it right now, you're not watching you're not watching a miracle happening. You're watching the results of a miracle that happened before.
And you're unaware, unless somebody told you.
Forget the unaware. We're saying that, no, this you could see.
You're aware.
This you could see. Because you see that it should take 4 hours to burn down and it only takes 1. Whatever, we're not worried if you're going to stand there for hours. The point is you can see a miracle, but you're not seeing a miracle happening right now. You're seeing the result of a miracle that took place on day one, where he changed the composition of the oil. He made it super strong. He's not making it super strong right now. You get it? So again, it's just based on a miracle. You're not seeing a miracle. Whereas in Be'er Gimel, if you look at the Rebbe's explanation, the Nes is mitzad nimna hanimnoyes. There's a constant miracle going on. The Nes itself is happening every single second. Every single second, the oil is being consumed, and every single second, the oil is not being consumed. Someone who comes in there, okay, give him a minute, but he's going to realize not that a miracle took place on day one, but there's a miracle happening every single second for 8 days. And this is the awesomeness of Chanukah. The way the Rebbe understands Chanukah, he makes it so much more exciting. This is an 8 days of continuous miracle, not that we're celebrating even something that happened on the first day and we're just reminding ourselves on the 8 days, 8 days in. The miracle of the lights was a continuous, supernatural, at the highest level, supernatural and natural simultaneously for 8 consecutive days. So we're right now in that space, right? Whereas everyone else who learns the miracle, the rest of Hanukkah is sort of like a throwback to day one. So the Rebbe just ups the whole ante on the whole thing. It's mamish incredible. Anyway, we'll finish it on Sunday, B'ezrat Hashem.
We can use missing like that now.
What's that?
We can use missing like that.
We got them, man. Especially now.
No, really, you can see.
Well, you can't even see this. You got to take a second look. If you take a second look, you see that that's happening right this second.
Can I wake you up early?
Look at the state of Israel for a second, right? Like we're being consumed, and yet we're not being consumed. Not a drop of oil is lacking. It's mamish like you just have to take a second look.
It sounds like this pirush on Achitikla Regular Nashuv. There are 2 pirushim, right?
Right.
It sounds like you're putting the 2 together and saying, yeah.
Nullifying it and having it burn up to Hashem. It comes from Shir HaShirim, that the Alter Rebbe's Shir HaShirim, the first mimer.
And I learned from the Rebbe.
It's he says that they're opposites. He says because the Indian of burning up to Hashem is that there's a yesh involved, and the Indian of total hisbatlus is the ayin. So the fact that you can have those 2 things together.
The regular term, Talmidoi, means Hapcha as well.
Right. He's Hapcha, but there's two versions, right?